Hi, my name is Corinne Bloom, and I'm a life coach and mentor. And today I want to talk about energy and the energy of our story. So what I mean by our story is that we run multiple stories, I think, simultaneously in our lives. One could be a very, very old story from when we were little, the story of our family, the story of who we are, the story of our life and how life relates to us. And also we can get caught up in mini stories throughout the day, how that person, what they did, what they said, how did that affect us, how did we react to that, the story of the weather, the story of politics, the story of work, the story of drama. There are multiple stories that are happening, and that affects our energy. It affects our emotions, it affects our experience. And the story, we can often figure out what the story is when we get into the repetitive cycle of talking about it. Of either thinking it through over and over in our minds, or it's the thing that we speak to our friends about the most, or to our therapist the most, or whoever you speak to. But yet it's not going anywhere. It repeats and it recycles, and nothing ever really resolves itself or shifts or transforms out of it. And this can have a really draining effect on us. And the thing that's perhaps ironic about it is that we think that the more we talk about it and the more we spin the wheel, that the better it's going to be. That somehow we'll get to the point where it will resolve itself and it will feel better. And there's a certain release of telling our story and having somebody hear it. But really there isn't the fulfillment because, or the embodiment of fulfillment, because we're stuck in a story rather than the reality of the experience of what's happening. So when you find yourself getting caught by a story, and you might want to start with a small one, or you might know a story that you've carried for most of your life and you know it very, very well, so go to that one. And start to just notice what the story is. You might even want to write it down. You might want to write it as if you're writing a fictional piece, a narrative. Tell your story, get it out on paper. And once the story has come out and you can kind of see it for what it is outside of you, then begin to ask yourself, what's really going on beneath the story? The story is just the noise. The story actually doesn't matter. What matters is the experience that you're having beneath it. So often in that, there are going to be feelings, and we love to avoid feelings because they're painful, or they're intense, or they're scary. But as I've been speaking a lot about in my past videos, being with the feeling allows for things to transform and change. The story will get us nowhere. It will kind of go along the superficial, the outskirts of the issue, and maybe sometimes it can point you to the direction that you need to go in, but don't get stuck in the periphery. Really go to the core of it. What are the feelings that you are perhaps scared to look at? And then beneath the feelings, what are the needs? What are your needs that aren't being met, that weren't met by perhaps a parent or a partner or life or yourself? And we can't really blame the external. All we can do is take responsibility for our own part of it. And as I've been talking about, I think a few weeks back, nurturing that part of ourselves that didn't get what it needed. So start to look at the story, look at the feelings, look at the needs within it, and see what happens when you simply drop the story and you go straight to the core issue and just be with it. Just simply be with it and begin to inquire with curiosity as to what it needs in order to heal, so that it doesn't need this story anymore. The story isn't serving you. It doesn't serve any of us. So I hope that this is something that you can think about and just catch yourself, again, without blaming yourself or feeling ashamed or guilty for when you do catch yourself in it. You might go, oh, here I go again in my story. but it's useful. Once you catch it, then you can change it, and that's wonderful, you know. So don't berate yourself over it. Just begin to recognize it, and even, you know, have a laugh with friends. If they might know your story, you might want to ask the friends that you really trust, what's my story? What do I always talk about? What is the paradigm or the dynamic or the pattern that I continue to talk about or get stuck in? Have them, you know, reflect that back to you if you choose to hear that, because it, you know, it might trigger some things in you. It might be difficult to hear, but you know, shame and hurt and pain and fear, the thing that really liberates these things is the truth. And it can be the scariest, but it will absolutely liberate it. But do it from a very nurturing, caring, attentive place within yourself. So the other practices that I've offered in the past of just really being with yourself, tuning into those before you go into this, because you'll need to be with yourself in the process so that you don't get scared or triggered or abandon yourself in the midst of it. So I hope that's something that you can think about, and I wish you well on your journey.